does my brand sit well with TikTok? If I look at TikTok now, is that where my brand is? Is that what now my staff may be on TikTok.
Correct.
My employees may be
Yeah.
watching, and they may be, but is my audience there?
Yeah.
Is that my, are my buyers
That's
there?
your target market.
Is that my target market? And if I go there, what am I doing? Because as we know, social media it's something where you have to feed the beast.
Yeah.
If you're not feeding the beast, then you're not there.
Correct. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Media Insights, Data Insights on the Go. So now we are going to discuss PR strategies and, of course, data insights with our special guest, Nicole Duke-Westfield. So, Nicole, I know you have decades of experience in communications and PR. Tell us a little bit. I know, but you're on your own now. You have Westfield Consultant.
Westfield Communications.
Communications. So tell us a little bit how you got to this position.
Right. So I started out when I was about 5 years old, since I have all these decades of experience. But yeah, so my career started in journalism, in media in Trinidad and Tobago, primarily in print. And I spent about 15 years as a journalist, editor. When I left, I was the editor of the Trinidad Guardian newspapers.
Great.
And I thoroughly enjoyed my time as a journalist, but I always felt I wanted to get involved in communications in different ways. And so the opportunity came for me to join a team in corporate communications.
Right.
I started out in the energy sector, very green. My experience was one of that of a journalist. So
Right.
a lot of reporting, media reporting. So my understanding of communications, the world of communications, was from that perspective. And so that grew, evolved. I've worked in the energy sector, financial services. And so that from there, it's interesting. The shift into owning my own business has been quite a journey.
Right.
So many things. And I'm sure, Joel, you and, you all could attest to it,
Correct.
being part of I can't even say a small business anymore. You're a medium-sized
We're growing. Yes.
Media Insight is growing. But for me, there was so much that I thought I knew, didn't quite know, just, learning as I go along. But for me, it was about, and the company Westfield Communications is a partnership with my husband and I.
Right.
He's in IT, so communications from, I guess, that side of it, interesting. But for us, it was about being able to work with clients more directly, building something for ourselves, obviously,
Right.
and building our own legacy, but also being able to work in the discipline in the industry that we love, because he too came from media. And being able to contribute to our clients.
Right.
So I am immensely happy that you all have asked me to sit with you.
Yes.
And to talk about these things that we are also very passionate about.
Correct.
Communications. I don't know who else is passionate about it, but I know definitely we are. And so that's how I
You
came to be.
started.
Yeah.
I found that, you are the perfect person that we wanted to speak to today, being that, you're in the corporate entity of having your own business, working with small businesses as well, and as well coming from the landscape of working with those larger organizations, the energy sector, banking sector, also having a background in journalism. So, a lot of persons don't have that experience of coming from journalism into that corporate experience. So the next question is, in terms of PR strategies and communications, how does it differ from you meeting with a small business as opposed to meeting with a larger organization?
It's an interesting question that you ask. I think fundamentally there is no difference, or maybe there's a distinction without a difference. I don't know.
Right.
I think that if you are small business, micro, one man, solopreneur, individual, large company, if you are thinking about communications, public relations, and strategy, then the principles of the discipline of this business are the same
Correct.
for anyone involved in at a business level. You are looking at, your company. You're thinking about trust. You're thinking about your relationships with your clients and your stakeholders.
Yes.
You are thinking about how you show up, right? What does your brand represent? And you're also thinking about the return on your investment.
Correct.
We're all thinking
Yeah.
in those terms. And so as a consequence, your public relations strategy has to be geared to what those things mean for you.
Yes.
Now, a big corporate, big company, hundreds of employees.
Yeah.
You may be thinking about it on a much broader scale from a global perspective. You're dealing with international clients as well as local. You have multiple stakeholders. You have a large employee base. So yeah, it scales up for you.
Correct.
In a major way.
Yeah.
Your spend, for example,
Yeah.
would be
Spend can't be the.
would be considerable, right? For a smaller company, for a micro, for a small company, maybe operating with 5 or 6 employees, even,
Correct.
10 or 15 employees, or you may be working directly with contracted people, consultants. So you don't have that kind of day to day. Maybe you operate out of your home.
Right.
Your consideration of reputation, brand, trust, return on your investment, your earnings, your revenue, all of those things you still have to think about.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're thinking about it on a much smaller scale, however.
Yeah.
And so for you, it is maybe a question of the how. The strategy would be the same in terms of I am looking to grow my brand. I am looking to embed trust. I am looking to ensure that I distinguish myself from my competitors, and I am seeking to increase my revenue.
Correct.
The question for you is how you're doing that.
Yeah.
And how you're spending. You may have a small budget, right? A back pocket budget, whereas a big company has, full service budget. And to me, those are some of the considerations.
And it's just about tying it in together. So you talk more about your brand reputation, things like that. When people talk about those things, they think first thing it's marketing. So, but you have to tie in the communications part, because as a small business, you're definitely marketing yourself to get out there.
Yes.
But you have to put the strategy behind of how you're relating that to your clients. What are they saying, and how are you actually getting it back to them?
Yes.
Because let's say you have a product or service and it's for some specific reason, something goes wrong. You have to be prepared of how to respond to it to not destroy your brand reputation.
Yeah. So a lot of, in a lot of companies, marketing gets all the noise,
Correct.
the attention, right? We know that. There's always this kind of healthy tension between the PR or the communications practitioner or the officer and the marketing person, because they are into sales, they are into funnels, leads, they're generating revenue on a direct, and they're working like that. And they have they have pretty healthy advertising budgets.
Yeah.
Whereas traditionally, in public relations, we are seen as the cost center. So I am spending all this money, right, to do all of this communications, quote unquote.
But what are we measuring? What are we doing?
Exactly. At the end of the day, when you think about it, companies. So if I'm a company and I'm thinking, if you look at why do people do business with you? They do business because they trust you. They do business because you deliver. They do business because you do what you say you will do. And so when you think about that, you then go back to, so how do I tell that story? Who's telling that story for me?
Correct.
Your communicator.
Yes. Yeah.
Your communicator is framing that message for you. Your communicator is also making the connection between what you do in your operational side, in your business side, and how that is presented.
Correct.
Right? Traditionally, if we look back, PR was always seen in a lot of ways, I would see, as image building.
Right.
It's all about presentation, look and feel. You had to be well coiffed, well dressed, made up. It was always about front of camera.
Yes.
We have seen a shift over the years where the science of communications, the science of the discipline of public relations has come to the fore. And it is and that has come hand in hand with your side of the business, the data.
Yes.
Because the data tells us
Tells the story.
where to go. Are we putting the money where it needs to be put?
Correct.
Right? Do I need to put an ad in all 3 newspapers? Or do I need to be on social media?
Yeah.
Do I need to pay for a television commercial, a television spot, prime time? Or can I look at YouTube and other channels, digital channels for my, or do I look at all?
Correct.
Do I need to be all places all the time? Those are some of the scientific considerations that you have to now look at.
Right. And speaking on data, right, and how data marries with PR, we know in recent years data has become such a huge role in campaign effectiveness. Can you, expand on how we can use data analysis to develop like a successful strategic PR initiative?
Right. So historically, a lot of it would have been about instinct. Instinct was big in our business. People, you hear, if you look at, you go back to a series like Mad Men on television.
Yeah.
The advertising guys, a lot of it was about their instinct.
Correct.
Today, yes, there's instinct. Yes, there's gut. But data affirms all of those things.
Yeah.
And you can't deny the data. If in Trinidad, in the Caribbean, it may be a question of scale and the numbers. In the United States, everything is about reputation and everything is about the data and people's jobs are on the line on a daily basis. It may be a little less so in the Caribbean because we have so many other cultural underpinnings and other considerations, but it is still a factor. For example, if you're a company that is focused, you're looking at your hiring strategy. How am I attracting the best out of the universities? How am I attracting those students who are studying abroad to get them to come back to Trinidad, right? Because now I'm competing for that talent, that intellectual talent. I'm competing with the US and European companies, right? So how am I attracting them? I need to now understand what the data is saying about my business, about my company, where is my audience? So, for example, a lot of people now talk, when they talk to me about even media relations and publicity and PR and that kind of thing, they say, tell me about the social media, a lot of people talking about, I need to be on TikTok, right? So we want TikTok is a nice.
It's a nice to have.
It's energetic. It's quick. It's
It's youthful.
Does my brand sit well with TikTok? If I look at TikTok now, is that where my brand is? Is that what now my staff may be on TikTok?
Correct.
My employees may be watching, and they may be, but is my audience there? Is that my, are my buyers
That's
there?
your target market.
Is that my target market? And if I go there, what am I doing? Because as we know, social media it's something where you have to feed the beast.
Yeah.
If you're not feeding the beast, then you're not there.
Correct.
So data gives you that.
Yeah.
Data tells you if I am going after the best and brightest in Trinidad and Tobago, from an employee perspective, an employment and recruitment perspective, how do I attract them? What are the things that the new employee today is concerned about? Are they concerned about remuneration? Are they concerned about working for a company that has that is distinguished in the market, a company that is respected? Are they concerned about the environment and how I, as a company, impact the environment? What is my relationship? All of those social things.
Yeah.
That is where data is critical.
And I love how you brought up in all the different media channels or in new social media platforms. How does public relations play a role with that? How has it evolved, not only in Trinidad, but by extension the Caribbean?
Tremendously. And I think that, so when I started out in communications, it was about newspapers, television, radio.
Right. That's it.
That's it. We were good. And so you had to consider, you had to think about placing, how am I showing up in these three places? And so the journalist was a big stakeholder for you. The media was a major stakeholder for you. They still are. But now you have to bring in the question of your digital presence.
Correct.
Am I on any number of the social media platforms, whether it is Meta, TikTok, as I said, Snapchat, all of these different spaces, and it can be daunting, even for me as a practitioner in the industry. I sometimes have to be quiet and think about, really be deliberate and think about what is best for the client. Do you really need to be there?
Right.
Because of course it's catchy, it's sexy, it's interesting, it's modern, it's new. So people feel that I'm not going to be recognized if I'm not in these places.
Right.
But it is how you show up. It is about being very deliberate and strategic about what are you presenting there. What is the message that you are sharing there? When you are on Facebook, or when you on Instagram or any of these social media platforms, it is interactive. So it's not just about you putting up an ad with, a happy family interacting with your product or your service and saying lovely things about yourself and everything is nice with the world. Because it's a revolving door.
Yeah.
The audience is going to say to you, hello, I remember using that product and it didn't do what it said it would do,
Yeah.
How are you responding to that?
Correct.
So you have to be ready
Yeah.
to be in that space.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily no, don't go there, but it is, you have to be strategic. You have to plan how you are doing that. And then you have to engage with the right people to be able to manage that relationship for you if you don't have it in-house.
Right.
Right? And I think that it's an investment, and it's an investment that companies, large and small, need to think about seriously in terms of how they are utilizing their resources.
Yeah.
Because resources is a big part of it too.
I would like to spin off of that because, at Media Insight, what we do is gather the data, and it's not just as you're saying, people follow. You have to do your tactics on Instagram, TikTok. You might be doing traditional media. So let's take the examples of the banking sector or energy sector. They're probably using all because they have to reach the different persons and audiences. So with Media Insight, we are now able to bring all those platforms into one platform.
Yes.
So you're able to see it in Talk Walker. We bring you the traditional media, social media, your blogs, your press, everything like that into one. Taking that, what should be your tactics if you are handling a crisis in terms of responding? How long would you take to respond? And what is the messaging going to be on each kind of platform?
So that's a big consideration.
Yeah.
I think what is really valuable in terms of what Media Insight is able to bring is, as you said, putting all that data together in one place. So, for example, if we stay with the banking sector,
Correct.
the big conversation now is about foreign exchange,
Yeah.
and access to foreign exchange, and how can why are we now in this position?
Correct.
And if you look at the conversations that up to yesterday, some of our former central bank, at least two former central bank governors, one of whom was also a minister of finance.
Correct.
At one point, they have now entered the conversation. We've had bankers who've said, who've spoken before. When you are able now, as a company, particularly a company that is utilizing foreign exchange or has a need for foreign exchange, I want to be able to have access to all of that information, to be able to pull that together and to look at it and analyze it from my operational, not just from the communications. And I think that's the value too. It's not just from a communications or PR strategy perspective, but that data is also valuable from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
Because I can now say, okay, this is how the conversation is trending, right? This
Correct.
is where I now need to think about if I'm going to enter, if I'm asked a question or if I have to be part of this conversation, should I be part of this conversation?
Yeah.
What am I saying based on the insights that I have received here?
Yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. I think as well, from a crisis communication, I want to, and we hear a lot about crisis. I know we talk a lot about crisis communication.
But it happens.
Right? And it happens, and it's important. We can't discount it. But I want to take the discussion back a little bit to issues management. Understanding what issues threaten your organization, right? So that when you and it's important for leaders to sit with public relations, with marketing, with operations. If you have an HSE health service, health and safety, they as well, and you sit and you understand, you discuss. What are the critical issues that threaten your organization? Threaten your organization potentially from a reputation and brand standpoint. Threaten my organization from an operational. What could halt my business?
Yeah.
What could interfere with my revenue line, my bottom line? What could impact my employee engagement?
Yeah.
What could affect my suppliers? For some companies, there may be a handful of issues. For others, it may be a little bit more. But I think issues management and understanding what issues potentially hit you, that's where your conversation starts. Now, crisis could still happen.
Yeah.
Right? You could have the best issues management program. You build out your stakeholder management plan. You identify all of your key stakeholders, and you know what you're going to be saying to them at any point in time. And still, bam, an incident happens.
Yeah.
In plant, machinery, people, operations, process, even an external incident happens. COVID.
Yeah.
All of the issues management in the world might not have.
They weren't prepared.
We weren't thinking about COVID.
No.
So from that perspective, yes, but I think issues management goes hand in hand. And data is what we need. Data has to walk that road. Data management, data mining has to walk that road with issues management and crisis.
Yeah. I like when you say that in terms of issues and crisis, because we also look at it from a Caribbean region and things are happening all over. If you have a brand that is being exported and something happens with them in their other regions or things like that, how do you respond to something like that? Because you might know much about the culture here in Trinidad, but what is their culture like, and how would they respond to things like that?
And that is critical. We are looking at a situation. So we are in the height of the hurricane season. We're not out of it yet.
No.
Yes, and this past week we've had flooding incidents in Trinidad as well as in Grenada. Lives, a life was lost as far as I know. At least one life was lost in Grenada. For companies that are doing business in Grenada, these incidents, these situations will impede or impact their business?
Correct.
What is the relationship on the ground? What is your situation on the ground?
Yeah.
Can I have a conference call with my team in Grenada, who some of whom are now dealing with flooding in their own homes and their
Their
communities?
families, things like that.
So the cultural, having to understand all of these cultural issues. What are some of the there was a US election, right? Surprise, I guess, for a lot of people. A lot of people didn't see it going where it went. So now governments across this region, CARICOM, and the governments across the region have to think about all these relationships.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe reestablish. We've already seen where leaders are saying they now have to reach out to the president designate, the new president to
Start a
reconnect.
relationship. Yep, mere relationship.
It also has, but I want to say that it is also a consideration for businesses that do, companies that do business in the United States. There may be businesses now that have to think about those, it's relationships.
Yeah.
And so you are constantly having to look at the situation from a global standpoint.
Yeah.
It's not enough to say anymore that, okay, well, we live in Trinidad and we know our audience is localized. And no, you're not. You live in the world.
Yeah.
Correct.
We live in the world, and a lot of global incidents, situations, developments affect us in different ways.
I have always seen public relations as it's always have this part of storytelling towards it, shaping the perspective and helping the engaging audience understand certain situations, better resolve it somehow. But I would like to know from you, in your opinion, how can you approach storytelling with PR in the Caribbean? I know it's something totally different, as how Joel mentioned. Culture is always different in every aspect. How do you use that storytelling to impact each engaging audience, and how to get your message across in the most
Effective way?
I think it's about being, in my opinion, it's about being authentic and being true to who you are.
Right.
As an individual, as a company. You can't tell, you can't tell someone else's story.
Yeah.
You can only tell your own. And so it is important to look at to understand, okay, so what am I? Understand who you are. What are you about? What do you stand for? Your vision, your mission, your strategic direction. Those are some of the three things that most companies would have. What do those things really mean for you, for your organization, and how are they borne out in your activities? Right? So those are some of the groundings when you think about storytelling for your company. If you think about, to me, one of the most recent examples, if I look at, and I'm not giving shameless plugs here for any one brand or product, but if you look at the Carib ad, the Christmas ad, for example, the connection with the sentimentality of Christmas, the Caribbean
culture, authenticity,
right? The father who's the bus driver, the son who's longing to be home with his dad, and it brings together all of those things that we still hold dear in our society: family, traditions, connecting with people.
Yeah.
The bus driver, that the guy, the father knows everybody on his route.
Yeah.
So all of those things, we can relate to. So relatability is important. When the young man interacts with the customs officer, I think most people have a customs officer story when they've traveled, right?
Yeah.
So all of those things are important. The relatability of that story is incredible.
It is.
And there are other great examples of that. And that's where the storytelling gets really tacky and it touches you in a particular place.
I think it's emotional back.
It's very emotional.
Yeah.
Exactly.
When you
want
could
to
hit someone like that.
Yeah.
they're gonna want to watch that, share that,
and
talk about
and
it.
they feel it is real.
Yeah.
It becomes real for you. The stories have to be grounded in something. Because some themes are universal.
Yeah.
Once you watch American television, North American, even European television, the storytelling, sometimes you sit and you watch an ad out of the US or the UK or other parts of Europe, and you end up crying, and you're wondering, well, why am I crying? This is an ad. We know that these are actors, but it has hit you.
Emotions, the
Yeah, and that connection, people connect on some very real levels. And so and when I talk about the science of communication, you go back to the human communication,
Yeah.
right? I know in Trinidad, we know Cricks, we know Clim, we know Bleach, we know Breeze.
Yeah.
There are some products that we know, whether they were across the board, right? A mother sends a child to the shop to buy milk, and they will still say, go and buy it in a Clim.
Yeah.
You know, they buying Clim,
Yeah.
but that's what they know.
Correct.
And so people and because of those connections, the brands that win are the brands that make those connections. And that's the essence of the storytelling.
Wow. Yeah, I've always known that, marketing has that self-psychology with it. And now understanding that PR also has its psychology.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
that should be taught more in schools,
Well, I think they are. I mean, I think that so I came into communications in a different way to maybe a lot of people now.
Yeah.
I learned from the ground up. So I worked
that's
my
why I
way in
said
communications. Decades. Thanks, Joel. I'm not going to forget you for that. Whereas a lot of people have come out of university, they have their PR degrees and that kind of thing. And I think and they do explore those themes. The human communication side of it is really critical.
It is.
The science of how, because at the end of the day, when you are designing a PR strategy, there are three things that you want to look at. What do you want people to know? What do you want them to feel? And what do you want them to do? Because any strategy that you design in public relations and communications, there must be an outcome. I'm not just doing it because it's nice and it's a nice to have. There has to be an outcome.
Yeah.
I want people to do something.
Yeah.
I either want them to spend money on my product, I want them to engage with my service, I want my employees to feel good about themselves and to see the value of working here and to work harder. I want my stakeholders I want my customers to always be confident about me. I want my partners to know that their investment is safe and that doing business with me is a safe bet. Right? And give me a 90-day window to pay to pay for a shipment if that is what is needed. You want people to do something at the end of the day. So that's where the science comes in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You really sounding like, that's that ideal business you want to be in. But it takes it back to how we are always approaching PR. And you say, communications about interacting with your audience and everything. But I just want to take it back, interacting with your employees.
Yes.
What is the communication structure in terms of internally? Because you have to also give them that opportunity to feel comfortable, not to say when they come to work and say, I love what I do.
Yeah.
And if they get poached by somebody else, they're saying, nah, I need to stay here.
Yeah. So there's some complexity there because your employee is a brand ambassador. You want your employee to speak well about your organization. Your employee is also an audience.
Yeah.
So there are multiple things that you have to consider when you're designing your communications, your internal communications plan, your strategy. And so it has to go in hand with the business, with HR, obviously, with human resources, people management, because you need to understand what is the strategy for people, retention, development, growth, Do I have a training plan? What is the remuneration packages looking like? All of those things. And also, as I had said earlier, why?
Yeah.
Why do people want to work for me? Understand that.
Correct.
Right? And who do I want working for me? Sometimes some organizations may say, they may not always hire the top, the brightest, the sharpest in the interview.
Yeah.
They want the person, sometimes they go after the person who is demonstrates a lot more emotional intelligence or seems to have a sense of humanity or a sense of social connection. Different things, right?
Yeah.
And so as a consequence of that, you how are you communicating with this body? Top-down communication, obviously we know important. Leader messaging, leader communication, critical. But organizations, people are not robots,
Right.
right? The landscape, the world of work has changed.
Yeah.
A lot of employees are telling their organizations, I don't want to sit in an office every day, 24/7. You smile. That conversation is real.
Correct.
Companies are also finding out that the new worker, the young worker, not interested in an 8 to 4.
At all.
I'm not interested in an 8 to 4. I may even work longer hours for you, but don't put me to sit behind a desk.
No.
And compel me to sit in the office. Companies also have to face the changing landscape of their workforce in the sense of age and experience. You have a group of long-serving, decades-long employees working for you, but you now have the millennials, and you now have the young ones coming in, and they have a different set.
Yeah.
And if any of them are like my 22-year-old son, they're not afraid of saying what they want and what they don't want.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right? And so you have to communicate, you have to find your level in terms of communicating to these different groups.
Yeah.
You have to empower you have to also consider, how am I empowering them to be able to communicate about me? You don't want your employee going out into the workforce and into the world and saying, I wouldn't recommend anybody to come and work here. Don't come by me now. Problem. You don't want that.
Exactly.
Right? As you say, you want people to stay.
Stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want people to stay.
Yeah.
Now, some organizations, interestingly, I don't know how, to be honest, I don't know how many in Trinidad, but some organizations are sometimes happy for their people to leave from the perspective of go out into the world,
Yeah.
take what I have taught you, perform. That is also that's also a message for them. That's also a brand tick for them.
Correct.
Because you now represent a body of people who, obviously this company is great because look at the quality that they're turning out.
Yeah.
So there's that side of it as well. And from a communication standpoint, you want your employees to be as informed about your business as they possibly can be.
Oh, yeah.
Keeping people in the dark creates suspicion. It encourages distrust. It encourages a sort of resentment. You have to be willing to tell your organization, tell your people how you are doing where your business is, how you are performing, how you're performing against your competitors, where you are lining up, what you're looking. You have to tell people what your vision is.
Yeah.
How am I can't know by osmosis. You have to tell me where you see this company in 5 years. And how are we going to get there? And once I understand that, I can come on the bus with you.
That's why vision statements, purpose statements are so important for a company, because you don't want your employees to be unsure about what they do.
Yes.
And why they do it, why are they waking up to come to work for you.
Yeah. And it also cannot just be a statement on a big plaque.
No.
On
They have to live
at your
it.
front desk,
Yeah, you have
to
and
believe
then nothing. You know, you have to live it. So in communications, we always talk about you tell people that you told them, and then you tell them again.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly be reminding people, this is why we come to work every day. This is what we're working for. This is who we are. This is who we are. This is what we represent. Those messages have to be consistent.
I know right now our audience is sitting by their desk or just listening to us, can't come off saying, Nicole is dropping all these gems and wondering, God, when we can sit down with Nicole on our own. And what it is, the Public Relations Association of Trinidad and Tobago has given us that opportunity to hear a little bit more from Nicole.
Yes.
Media Insight as well. We are partnering with Pratt in order to bring a wonderful workshop on how to create crisis strategy.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about what kind of conversation is going to come out of this.
Yes, I'm glad you took us there eventually, because I've been talking a lot. So I've been a member of Pratt for some time, and we have always discussed at the leadership level, even as a membership, how can we engage with members more? How can we engage with our industry more? And even beyond public relations and communications.
Yeah.
And so the president and the executive team, LaShawn Ramden and her team, they came up with this. They asked me to facilitate this conversation about how to create a crisis communication strategy. It's not just for public relations and communications practitioners. I think that it's an opportunity for other people in business and operating in organizations to be part of it. And it is really about going through what are the important things that we need to understand when we think about crisis and when we think about building a strategy. What do we need to do? What are some of the hands-on, important, critical things that we need to understand to be able to execute an effective strategy and to manage, at the end of the day, manage successfully a crisis.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
We seem to be, some people may say we seem to be caught up in, we seem to always be going from crisis to crisis to crisis across the board.
Yeah.
Different organizations, always having different things to look at. As I said, I think you do have to go back a bit and think about your issues and your issues management, and that's one of the things I want to really bring up in the discussion. But that said, you also have to look at, okay, my company is facing a crisis now. It's been deemed a crisis. One, how do you define crisis?
Correct.
It's important.
Yeah. I think that's an important question.
It's critical
It is.
because we lump everything into this basket of crisis.
Yeah.
And so we need to understand what are we talking about when we say crisis, and then once we understand that, then how are we approaching it in terms of from a strategy and then execution.
Yeah.
I think those things are critical. And from a measurement, data and insight and measurement is important inside of that, because you need to know almost in a very live way, hour by hour, I would say.
Correct.
You need to know how you are showing up.
Yeah.
You need to know what people are thinking about what is happening, what they're saying about what is happening, because that helps it helps you to shape, to change path, to focus on something on a different area. All of those things are important.
And I think that's why Media Insight will be at hand to
Yes,
also
I'm glad
show
for that.
what our services are going to do in terms of bringing all this information into one platform, as mentioned, and how fast it's available.
Yes.
Because once it comes out in the news, it's within our platform. You can get that information. You now could be able to analyze it, put it onto the different platforms and respond
Yes.
to your target audience or your audience in a timely
Yeah.
matter.
Yeah, critical.
We also bring news, regular industry news towards you on a daily basis. So it might not be directly to the actual crisis, but it could relate to what is happening worldwide, and then
Certainly.
we could relate it to the audience
Certainly.
as well.
And the thing is, Joel, when you think about it, and we've had this conversation offline a few times, a lot of issues, a lot of what we see as crisis, companies discovered because somebody said something on social media or in the public domain. It was not, a lot of times it doesn't emerge from the company side, but an issue comes up in the public domain. Someone posts something on social media, and that blows up, and then becomes it becomes an issue that a company now needs to manage. So how crisis comes about, how that makes it even more critical for you to have that data, because if you're monitoring the media, if you're monitoring the platforms, if you're monitoring your different channels, then things will come. You see things far more in a more timely manner, far more frequently, that can tell you, okay, I'm seeing something developing here. And you can maybe even circumvent potential issues from happening, which is, at the end of the day, that's what you want.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't want to have to manage crisis.
No.
If we could take that off the table, it would be great.
Because you all have other things to do.
Because we have other things to do. But yeah, it is a challenge. I know it is a challenge in the industry, and I think that is why the PR Association thought it important to have this discussion. And to engage with, not just its members, but to engage with the audience in a real way. And they've tasked me to be able to kind of carry this workshop.
I don't think that's a task.
You think, eh?
I don't think that's a task.
No pressure.
No pressure. But let us join the Pratt team, Nicole Duke-Westfield and Media Insight, on the 29th of November in St. James. It's only $250 for members, $300 for non-members. Registration is on their social media. You could visit them. And definitely the spots are filling up very fast. Nicole is dropping all her gems right now. And she's have even more in the bag.
But finally, I would like you to just give us 3 pertinent reasons why someone should join this session.
Because I'm hosting it. One.
Media Insight too.
No. I think one, I think it's important to be in a space where you can talk with your peers, have a real conversation with your peers about what's happening in an area of your business that is critical for you. So I think that networking and that exposure is important. I think it's important for people to for us to have a real discussion about what are the critical areas of crisis management, crisis communication, strategy building, and organizational issues management. I think it's in my opinion, I think that is an important area that we have to continually look at, and continuous learning. There always, I think, any opportunity to learn and to understand more and to hear from different people, and to also engage some of your own thoughts and bring it out. I think those opportunities are always critical. And I think the PR Association, small as it is,
but they're doing some great stuff.
But it is, constantly looking at what are the critical things for our members and a wider audience. How can we bring together to have these real discussions about our industry?
Right, and there you go. 3 pertinent reasons on why you should attend the upcoming Pratt workshop.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. It has been indeed a pleasure with us today. You could tell our audience exactly if they want to get in contact with Nicole and talk to her a little bit more, find out how to really get those strategies down.
So Westfield Communications, I am on social media. In my own name, Nicole Duke-Westfield, or as Westfield Communications. So you can find me there. I could give out my phone number. I don't want to give out my phone number.
They will just DM you, send you a message.
Yeah. Send you, drop me a line. I think that most people, particularly through Media Insight, because I really appreciate the work that we've been able to do together over the years through Alison, yourself, Joelle, and the team. You all have been tremendous in what you how you continually seek to bring information to people to help them really understand this industry better. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And this has been Media Insight, Data Insights on the Go. Till next time.
Next time. See you.